Living with the Text is a series of short videos that are meant to help us engage with the upcoming scripture for Sunday. In the same way that a preacher lives with the text all week, we hope that you will also. We don't work on the text as much as we allow the text to work on us. Let this engagement with Scripture be a gift to your week, and find out how much more meaningful Sunday worship will be when you've been living with the text all week. Well, church, the text this week comes to us from the Gospel of Mark. We're still walking through the 10th chapter. We're going to read today, this week, chapter 10, verses 35 through 45. James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came forward to Jesus and asked him, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask." And Jesus said to them, "Well, what is it that you want me to do for you?" And they said to him, "Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory." But Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you're asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism that I am to be baptized with?" And they replied, "We are able." Then Jesus said to them, "The cup that I drink, you will drink. And with the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand and to sit at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared." Well, when the other 10 disciples heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them together and said to them, "You know that among the Gentiles, those who they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not to be so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many." My brothers and sisters, this is the gospel of Jesus Christ that we live with this week. So as I was sitting with this text this week, I was thinking about my understanding of greatness and my own call to ministry. So the very first church I'd ever served as a solo pastor, it was while I was in seminary, and I was serving in Kentucky, Henry County, which is about halfway between Lexington and Louisville. It was a great place. It was a farming community. Lots of cattle farm, dairy farm, but the main cash crop was tobacco. I was in the middle of nowhere, it felt like, this kid from West Virginia, out in a farmland where felt a little isolated because my neighbors were the church right to the left, about 40 feet from my house. And then I could see, not the house, but I could see the land of my neighbors on all sides. My neighbors were farmers, and I was not. But I was their minister, right? I was called to this ministry, and my idea, right, of a minister, right, of someone with this kind of authority in the church, right, was one that I had to sort of look the part, right? And so I would show up every day to the church and be seen out in the community with the pastoral look, right? This fake it till you make it kind of pastoral authority. I would wear my button-up dress shirts. If it was cold, I would put on a nice knit sweater to go with it. Always khakis, always my brown Clark's dress shoes. I had to look the part. But our neighbor, immediately to the right of my house, were not going to church at the time, but they were a young couple, and she was pregnant and finally gave birth to twins. One of them had to be life flighted to Louisville Children's Hospital. Really a scary moment for them, and thankfully it's all fine now. But in that moment, there was a concern for our neighbor in the church, and I always think Jesus is close when there's a concern for the neighbor in the church. The concern was it was time to put their crop in the ground. Now, how in the world is this family who needs this crop to survive going to get their crop in the ground when they're in Louisville tending to their infant baby? So it was time for the church to go to work. Surrounded by a bunch of farmers, they knew how to do it, and they asked, they said, "Preacher, do you want to help?" Well, I didn't know the first thing about it, except I knew I had to trade in my dress button-up shirts for my flannel. I had to kick off my khakis and put on some work jeans. I had to trade in my Clarks for some work boots. And somewhere out there, there's a picture of me sitting on the back of a tractor working this contraption that would put tobacco plant starts in a wheel that as it turned, it would dig a trench, plant it, cover it back up with dirt, and squirt it with water. And here's me sitting on the back of this tractor playing Farmer Joe. You know what changed, though? It is my role in that church grew exponentially. My sense of pastoral authority changed dramatically. And the people received my gifts for ministry because I had traded in my high idea of authority for my boots and working hand in hand with the people in service to neighbor. It was about that same time in seminary where I learned a cool phrase called servant leadership. Servant leadership. Have you heard that one before? This is actually one of my favorite pieces here on my desk, and I put it here in the camera shot for you. This is a picture of Jesus washing the feet of the disciples, because Jesus embodies for us what it looks like to be a servant leader. Do you have a leader that's close to you in your life? Someone who has led you, or maybe perhaps a mentor to you, or someone that you looked up to and admired to and listened to. Don't think someone on TV, right? I'm thinking someone close to you. Someone in your life who carried some real leadership authority that you had granted to them. I imagine there's a commonality amongst all of our leaders and mentors that are close to us in life. I imagine there's a commonality in their leadership style. Someone that didn't stand above you, but would always stand with you. Right? Someone who was humble, never claiming greatness for himself or herself, just considered it great to be among you. And someone who served you, someone who did something for you without any expectation of reward except maybe the smile of your good pleasure and their good pleasure to be useful and helpful. This is the model of Jesus' servant leadership. And the greatest leaders among us take on the posture of a servant leader. Jesus himself, who doesn't stand above us, but has promised to stand with us. Jesus himself, who embodies humility, never claiming greatness for himself, just considered it great to be one of us, and promises to be among us and with us always. Someone who has served us, who has done something for us and continues to give of himself over and over again for us, with no expectation of reward except the smile of God's good pleasure. Yes, Jesus embodies servant leadership, and the greatest among us are those who would live like Jesus. Where do you see servant leadership happening in your life today? Where is it that you can find opportunities to love and to serve, to shed off any preconceived notions of what you might think of greatness, and simply just serve another? Yes, let us have service on our minds this week, dear church, as we follow the servant Christ, as we seek to be good members of Christ's servant church. Yes, let us have service on our minds as we live with the text this week.